mind-controlling plagues of dancing, like what we see in the Mochi Mayhem story in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, are not only a real thing that has happened a few times throughout history, but people have died from it. And I think it's time we talked about Pecharunt and the Pokemon involved with it on this channel for real, not just the speculative, they've just been announced kind of video. But no, a real deep dive, a design delve, a destined de-ignorantizer. But first, there's a Pokemon-themed day at a local comedy bar I gotta check out, so bye.
You know, I was always told I could never do stand-up on account of not having legs. Now, while I'm a bit fuzzy, I've always liked the stage. Makes me feel peachy. So before this gig, I was at a karaoke bar, and I'd say I was pitch perfect. I just need to find some musicians now to start a band. I look forward to the jam sessions. So hey, I've got some juicy, self-depreciating humor for you. I hear that's a hit with you youngins. I never seem to win any argument. It's pitiful. Every time I try to make a point, I get canned. My favorite underwear. Glad you asked. Fruit of the gloom. 'Cause I'm so melancholy. Yeah. They say my friends are changed to me, but it's a pretty toxic relationship. I have serious attachment issues on account of how toxic molecules work by attaching themselves to other biological compounds and receptors that they shouldn't. Okay, yeah. I guess I can't practice what I'd peach, so, now I've got you. Please laugh. The fruit of my labor.
Pecharunt is the mythical Pokemon of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and it's perfect, especially its stand-up. There is nothing wrong with Pecharunt. It is the sweetest mythical of all, and everyone should have Pecharunt on their team. Georgians have no excuse. Look at how cute it is. All but one of its stats are 88, because sideways 8s all look like the link on its toxic chains. And its one other stat, defense, is 160. 16 is just 2 8s, and its ability to control the minds of humans and even other Pokemon to the point where their types change is a gorgeous phenomenon we should all admire daily. I know my day isn't complete until I've praised Pecharunt.
Are you good?
Oh, Maxwell, my sweet, sweet spectral skull friend. I think you need to try some of this delicious mochi.
Don't bother. I'm literally named after my missing jawbone. I'm here to emancipate you.
Oh, geez, thank you! Oh, you're like Abraham Chain Lincoln.
That is probably the worst thing you have ever said to me. Just do your usual thing now, I'm off.
Oh, right, my usual thing. What is Pecharunt based on? What about Ogerpon? What is her story? Lore, origins, and how does this relate to the not-so-loyal 3? Who are these 3 bad boys? And how does this all link up to the real-world Kitakami region? Well, I've got this toxic chain, and now you've just got to listen to me explain. When it comes to the core of the lore and designs of these 4, it's honestly pretty basic and a tad uninspired seeming, at least at first. The Japanese folktale of Momotaro is widely known across the region. Like, in the West, you might not have heard of it, but it is the Japanese equivalent to stories like Cinderella or Little Red Riding Hood in terms of their fame and influence. Like, just imagine now if Pokemon introduced a new legendary trio of Pokemon based on the 3 little pigs, and their 4th ruler of them was based on the big bad wolf, and they're just 3 pigs. And a wolf. That's kind of what they did here with these mod, but they did put a spin on it. But that might not be apparent if you don't know the story, so here's the story. Out in the wild wilderness of Japan, there lived an elderly couple who were absolutely desperate for a child. Try as they might over the many decades, their dreams never came to fruition. But one sunny day, while scrubbing their skivvies out in the river, they spotted something ripe for the picking. A giant peach bobbing along like it owned the place. Well, they weren't smart ones to let a good fruit float away, so they fished it out. But lo and behold, inside that peach was a wee lad they named Momotaro, which translates to Peach Boy. Now this kid didn't just pop out like any old seed. Oh no, he was ripe with potential, destined for pulp fiction greatness. Momotaro grew up quick, and soon he was itching for adventure like a pickle in a pantry. Armed with nothing but his trusty peach and a few rice cakes for munchies, Momotaro set off on a quest to stir up more trouble than a wasabi eating contest. He heard of an island where meany-beany ogres lived, Oni Island, and he was off to teach them a lesson and get them to stop bullying his fellow villagers. So off he went. But here's the twist. Momotaro wasn't just about to take on the bad guy solo, no siree. He rounded up a peachy posse. A talking dog with more bark than bite, a pheasant with feathers as flashy as a disco ball, and a monkey with a banana addiction that would put any chimp to shame. With his fruity crew in tow, Momotaro stormed the ogre's lair, and wouldn't you know it, they emerged victorious with the ogres singing a different tune faster than you can say karaoke night. Momotaro and friends returned home to a hero's welcome and became the peach of the town's eye. What a blast! And with that tale told, I'm sure you could see the connections to the Pokemon. The Peach Boy with that hair, headband, and eyebrows, the big dog, the pheasant, the monkey, and even Ogerpon, the ogre they fight against.
Wait, that sounded so cheery. It was like the movie trailer of some G-rated family flick. And if I know one thing about Japanese folklore, it's that it tends to be dark and messed up. Or horny.
True, but also... Bonus fact! Oni Island in the Momotaro stories is often depicted by putting a volcano in the middle of the island and giving it Oni horns, which the volcano in Kitakami has too. Most obvious in its official art.
That doesn't take away from what I said.
Well, yeah, of course that was the kid-friendly version. Just like with Western fairy tales, you can look at the original source material and it's a lot more twisted. There's gory body mutilation in Cinderella, Snow White has macabre torture, and Sleeping Beauty herself is a victim of, assault, to put it lightly. Birthing kids in her sleep as a result, and also she is a child herself still.
Oh yeah, give me the R-rated version of Momotaro.
Well, okay, Well, long ago, a childless and infertile couple stumbled upon a ghastly sight. A monstrous peach, bloated with malice, floating down the river. Ignoring the warning signs, they cracked open the cursed fruit, unleashing a foul abomination upon the world. From its rotten core emerged Momotaro, a child with eyes as black as midnight and a smile that chilled the soul. Despite this, the couple looked past his demeanor and felt oddly compelled to care for him as their own, and to do his every bidding. As Momotaro grew, so too did the darkness around the village. Whispers spoke of twisted creatures lurking in the shadows. Villagers vanished without a trace, their screams swallowed by the howling winds of the forest. Must be an Oni, claimed one villager. And so the strong Momotaro, now 15, set off to Oni Island to vanquish them for daring to step on his turf and harm the villagers who were all compelled into caring for Momotaro. Along his crusade, Momotaro armed himself with unholy companions. First, a huge stray dog the size of a horse with eyes that glowed like angry embers. And second, a monkey whose laughter echoed like the cackling of demons, its eyes gleaming with madness. These first two struggled to get along and frequently quarreled until Momotaro set forth a reign of terror over them. They became servants to the malevolent boy, who wielded them like puppets on strings. The group followed the sound of a mournful dirge and found its source, a pheasant, whom they threatened to kill if it too did not fall under Momotaro's spell and follow in his wake. Finally, on the night of the blood moon, the group reached the accursed Oni Island, where they found the many stolen treasures and several of the fair maidens kidnapped and turned into broken-minded concubines. One, however, was conscious enough to point out a weakness in the Oni's castle walls, where Momotaro then entered and reached the Devil King. The king confronted the cursed child with his 100 guards, but their efforts were in vain. Momotaro's gaze pierced through their souls, turning their courage into ash and their hope into despair. The claws, teeth, and beak of his companions tore through the flesh and viscera of any Oni who dared to approach. The Devil King surrendered, begged for mercy, and offered everything on the island to the boy, who merely laughed, reveling in the gore, and continued slaughtering every Oni on the island. The seas around the island echoed with the anguished cries of those who dared to defy the conniving kid, until they became finally blessed by a silence that spoke more to Momotaro's deeds than the screeches prior. Momotaro then triumphantly returned to his home with the Oni slaves and treasures in tow. The deed was done.
Oh yeah, that's the stuff.
I did embellish it a little bit, but if you go and read the original source material, Momotaro doesn't just befriend the animals all happy-go-lucky like most of the children's books suggests. The dog was a huge and angry highwayman, essentially, and threatened Momotaro with his life at first. Only through intimidation did Momotaro reverse the roles. Momotaro then used various charismatic manipulation techniques to control the dog and the monkey, and as a trio, they then just about killed the pheasant until it swore indentured servitude. And pretty much any time the animals had any doubts, Momotaro would manipulate them like puppets almost. There was very much a bit of puppety Stockholm syndrome going on with them too, like very textbook abusive or toxic relationships, which led not only into the Pokemon's signature malignant chain, which is permanently visible on the Loyal 3, manifesting as their toxic chain ability, but also is precisely what Game Freak latched onto when making this group of Pokemon. Momotaro is the hero of the story, though arguably the lesser of two evils, so Game Freak emphasized this problematic nature, giving Pecharunt literal mind control powers. Sometimes the mind control is only partial. Its signature ability, Poison Puppeteer, causes Pokemon who are poisoned by Pecharunt to also get confused. They have conflicting thoughts put into their minds. They must battle Pecharunt, but yet Pecharunt good? Hurts itself in confusion! This is where its ghost typing likely comes from too. Though Momotaro himself claims to be, quote, neither a demon or fairy when he is born, he was still a gift from the heavens, a spirit in human form of some sort. Also, he said that minutes from being born, which babies don't typically do unless there's some spirity stuff going on. Plus, mind control in media tends to go one of two ways. Either it's psychically induced, perhaps via technology, or it's a form of possession from a ghost or spirit. So, there you go. And I will now place this chain upon you once again and make doubly sure you check out our sponsor. But you don't need a sweet treat-induced mind control to see what a good deal Helix's premium mattresses are, especially during the 4th of July sale. I've had mine for like 7 years now, and I can personally vouch for them still. But what makes me love it so much? Why, it's build quality, of course, and the cooling cover on top helps the back of my meat bag breathe all night. There's a lot fewer summer sleep and sweat puddles now. My wife and I were matched with the Midnight Lux after taking their quick and easy online sleep quiz, which matches you and a partner to the perfect mattresses based on your own sleep preferences. It was then shipped to us freely, all vacuum sealed in an easy to move box. We set it up in the studio to get all of this delicious B-roll you're seeing now. And then we carried it back up the stairs to our bedroom, where it has now sat, putting up with a lot for 7 years. And yet it is still great and has 3 years left on its 10-year warranty. Beautiful. We didn't even need the 100 nights they let you try it out to make sure you love it, because we fell in love right away, even with the 2 free pillows. So about that 4th of July sale, you can visit the link in the description, helixsleep.com/Lockstin, to get 30% off an Elite or Luxe mattress plus 2 free pillows, or take 25% off site-wide. It's a part of their 4th of July sale, running now for a limited time. Maybe with a comfy new Helix mattress, you can even sleep through your neighbors launching fireworks all night. But probably not. Invest in your sleep, and your overall quality of life will improve. Let Helix help you, as they helped me. When it comes to Pecharunt fully controlling human minds, it does so via its binding mochi. Mochi is the food Momotaro traveled with, after all. Soft little rice cakes, they're super tasty. If you haven't tried them before, definitely do. Especially the candy variety without the ice cream on the inside. That's like a whole other kind of thing. Once a human eats some of this binding mochi, their eyes become purple, and their desires and capabilities are drawn out. Those who eat the mochi fall under Pecharunt's control, chained to its will. It also makes them do this strangely funny chicken dance, which is generic on most of the NPCs, but a few characters have some notable differences. Arvin is obviously super embarrassed and slow to do it, but meanwhile the ever-bashful Penny is like super energetic with it, revealing that she's always holding back a bit in her shyness. And Nimona just wants to battle even more, and even manages to get the word match out from the mochi chants they all say, like zombies almost. Actually, not almost. I think that might be partially what Game Freak was going for. All of the story beats in the Mochi Mayhem story arc plays out just like a kid-friendly version of a zombie B-movie. The creepy vibes, the creepy camera angles, the missing person, the splitting up to find them, the phone call being cut short, the zombification of your friends. It's pretty great, but maybe that connection is just a coincidence because those types of movies rarely have dancing zombies, or the zombification being because of food specifically. But there is a Japanese event that does relate to all of that. Ijanaika! I found out about this thanks to the game Like a Dragon Ishin, which has a sub-story about it. The year is 1867. The Meiji Restoration of Japan had just started a year prior. After centuries of being isolationist, Japan was opening up and slowly becoming more westernized. Thing is though, change bad. Spontaneous festivals popped up all over the country where for hours to days, people would dance and chant Ijanaika, which can mean, isn't it good? Why not? Who cares? Why not drink and party for days on end in the streets? What are the authoritarian authorities gonna do? They're busy dealing with the Westerners who way overpower them. Sarcastically, who cares about our ways and traditions? Merchants are selling us out to foreigners. People joined in for all sorts of various reasons, but join they did. The whole era was very chaotic. One British translator who was there at the time wrote that during these social protests, houses were decorated with rice cakes in all colors. Oranges, little bags, straw, and flowers. Rice cakes as decoration, you say? Oranges and flowers? Along with more and more people joining in on the silly song and dance that was purposefully as catchy as can be. Even in Like a Dragon, Ryoma spontaneously joins into the dancing and chanting before snapping out of it, saying, "Oh sorry, I don't know what came over me. This dance craze is terrifying. That dance has a power to it. I'll have to make sure it doesn't creep up on me again." And that's just before it takes over the guy he was talking to. So sorry, it's infectious. That all just sounds perfect as an inspirational source, especially since Kitakami is very traditionally Japanese in all of its ways and inspirations and the people there and the summer festival and everything. But it's not the only infectious dance craze in history. There's another that was explicitly caused by poisonous food, the same way Pecharunt causes people to do this. Now, there have been several so-called dancing plagues throughout history, but the dancing plague of 1518 is by far the most famous example of this. It happened in Alsace, part of the Holy Roman Empire that today is part of France. A woman, for seemingly no reason, started dancing in the street. A few others joined in the following hours, but then dozens joined in, and then dozens upon dozens, and eventually hundreds of people joined over the week. The dancing at times lulled, but not once stopped, according to records. The authorities tried to put a stop to it, but couldn't. Physicians were called in. Some claimed they were demonically possessed, others that they were just sick and needed to dance themselves out of the sickness. And a few dozen did so to the point that they died, collapsed in exhaustion, never to get up again. While they didn't know it at the time, one of the leading theories of what actually happened was food poisoning induced psychosis and mania. Ergo, fungi commonly grows on rye grains and bread, and there could have been a particularly large outbreak of it in the area at the time. Its effects are similar to taking LSD, aka acid, aka one of the party drugs. And even if you're partying while tripping hard, you still gotta eat. What's easily available? Oh, this rye bread that got me into this mess in the first place. While Pecharunt's takeover of humans was brief, it clearly had some long-term control over the Loyal Three. We don't know exactly how long it's been, but given that Kitakami's stories about the arrival of them and Ogerpon dates back several generations and visually looks like centuries ago, It probably was centuries ago that happened. After the fake news, false rumors about Ogerpon and its masters spread, the people asked Pecharunt to deal with them. Pecharunt then recruited its Loyal Three and defeated Ogerpon, though not without the loss of the Loyal Three, who were then revered as heroes. Statues were made of them, and they would later be resurrected and encountered by you. Now, just looking at their designs, you can tell that those purpley pink poison chains all clash a bit. They look like they don't belong to them, and that's because they don't. Look at Pecharunt creating them. Yeah, they belong to Pecharunt. Pecharunt just managed to attach these chains to these 3 Pokemon permanently, to the point where they became part poison type, because there's no other reason other than that chain for them to be poison type at all. And it's likely that the chain grants them the 1 to 3 poison type moves that they learn at most, and gives them their signature poison related ability, aptly named Toxic Chain. The chain itself resembles a simple skull with poison bubbles rising from it, a common way to show the poisoned status effect in video games, though on each mon, the chain presents itself differently, which I really like. Fezandipiti uses his chains like an obi, the cloth belts around the waist of kimono, which its feathery plumage resembles overall, particularly that of geisha ladies, female performance artists known for beauty and talent above all else. They always had the painted white faces with bright eye makeup like Fezandipiti too. Fezandipiti's feet are even pointed a bit to resemble the shoes they would wear to make them appear taller. But here's a fun fact. Fezandipiti is a male-only Pokemon, which is fitting because pheasants are one of those birds with some pretty extreme sexual dimorphism, the males being significantly brighter and prettier in order to attract a mate. But also, that makes them an onagata. You see, for a time, which conveniently is the same time that the Ijanaika dancing protests happened, women were not allowed to perform in kabuki theater plays, or any theater plays, because too often in certain areas, those plays were used more so as advertisements to the women's other lines of work. They were sex workers. The Japanese government eventually stepped in and said nuh-uh, and blanket banned women from performing altogether. But the plays that were more legitimate and were doing it for the art of theater improvised. The more feminine men would take on the characters and roles whenever necessary, pretty much going into classical Japanese drag. And the best part about all this, it didn't actually stop the sex work at all. In some areas, it actually increased it. Now the bidding was just going to the prettiest men. Loving femboys is nothing new. And while women are allowed in kabuki these days, the tradition of onagata lives on and has its particular fans. Which means, of course, there's big money to be made. Which means, of course, as is often the case with this line of work, abuse is common. The workers are often threatened and controlled, forced into staying in the biz, at least while they're still young and pretty looking. It's similar to the threats and manipulation Momotaro and the others made to the pheasant in order to get it to join and remain loyal, ain't it? Threatening it. Fezandipiti beats its glossy wings to scatter pheromones that captivate people and Pokemon, the Pokedex says, which lines up with actual history even more. How? Well, when the West opened up the country and really shook it up, leading to all those protests again, they began selling all kinds of things that by this point were common in the West, but not really a thing in Japan. This included perfume, which especially at the time and in the region was especially semi-pseudo-scientific with its wink wink nudge nudge, we added pheromones, get laid, smell good, buy my perfume and seduce men out of their money. This is actually also referenced in another sub-story in Like a Dragon Ishin, where you have to pick some up for a woman and along the way some gets on Ryoma and now men are confessing their love for him and literally chasing him, almost like they're in a trance. And that also could explain his fairy typing more so than just the generally considered a slur for flamboyant gay men-ness of it all. At least I hope so. Because you see, the only other perfume Pokemon is pure fairy type, Spritzy, and pheromones are pretty magical when you consider how they work and the effects they can have on people. Plus, fairy type is generally the type often associated with particularly feminine Pokemon. But now, Monkidori is a little monkey, likely the Japanese macaque, given that it's the only monkey native to Japan, and its feet have 2 little toes, which is like, makes it resemble geta, traditional Japanese footwear, which when socked makes it look like you have 2 toes. Monkidori uses the toxic chain like a headband, perhaps specifically a hachimaki, traditional Japanese headbands that are still worn today to some extent. They are most popular at festivals and events and dances, not unlike those Ijanaika dances, eh? which were noted to have featured many a headband. Hachimaki specifically are said to strengthen the spirit and help its wearers persevere through difficult tasks. Some even say it protects you from evil spirits, which is pretty ironic given the Pokemon context. Monkidori's hair resembles the Japanese shonmage hairstyle, which from the 15th to late 1800s was legally required for all samurai, which in turn almost socially required it or hairstyles like it for all other men. The rule was finally changed during, you guessed it, the Meiji Restoration, when all of this change and the dancing protests happened. But then later on still, it was actually banned for all non-samurai later on. Now, given Monkidori's mischievous nature and psychic typing, it could also be based on Satori, a monkey yokai who lives in the mountains, plays tricks on people, and can read people's minds in order to better play tricks on them. And in being a psychic monkey, you definitely would want to make sure your mind controlness on it is strong, thus the toxic chain being wrapped around its head. Makes perfect sense. And then Okidogie is a big dog, a Japanese Akita or Shiba Inu, and it wears its chain like a dog collar and leash. Visually, otherwise though, it's basically just that buff Doge meme, but Incineroarified. But it being the biggest of the bunch by a lot is very fitting because again, while the more kid-friendly versions of the story of Momotaro make it a cute, friendly little dog, the original source material says it's tough, aggressive, and the size of a colt, which is a young male horse. So small for a horse, very big for a dog, especially for Japan, and especially in a time centuries before we really started selectively breeding some dog breeds to be bigger. Being so big, the dog in the folktale makes for a very good highwayman, which is essentially a robber who ambushes travelers on the road and threatens them with harm if they don't offer food or money. A criminal practice common the world over, but in Japanese cuisine it was Ronin flavored. Some samurai would abandon their duty and become Ronin and turn to a life of crime, but they were still well trained in their samurai ways, thus making the fighting type fit well for Okidogie. But given its nature now, dark would fit also, which is likely why Okidogie learns quite a few dark type moves. If it wasn't poisonified by Pecharunt, you'd bet your butt it'd be fighting dark type. This criminal practice of being a Roman wouldn't really slow to a stop until, you guessed it, Meiji Restoration, that the practice would finally slowly draw to a close. Though it did eventually just become your typical Yakuza protection money racket. Still though, big tough types with their big tough guard dogs, that's perfectly fitting. And we even see Okidogie use its chain as a kusarigama. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's a Japanese weapon featuring a large chain that was designed for and commonly used against samurai and other swordsmen. And now, I'm not an expert in this by any means, but given the fluffy shoulders and overall shape of the black parts of the fur, it gives me Mongol warrior and barbarian vibes, which is again fitting of its fighting type, and Mongols did invade Japan, though I can't say for sure that's what Game Freak was going for, but in that case its tail is definitely like a big Oni club, which really is just an extra thick kanabo. Plus, Oni are typically depicted with the furry skirts kinda like it. Yeah? Plus I can also see those bits as kusazuri or haidate, the lower parts of samurai armor. Perhaps he's a Japanese rogue using stolen damaged parts of samurai armor. Or, you know, that is very fitting of a samurai who fled their duty. Or perhaps it's doubly a good reference. It's like those fluffy ended jackets used to make bigger, tougher Japanese men look even more imposing in media. Or perhaps it's generic on purpose. Yeah, it looks like a rough and tumble delinquent jacket with torn sleeves on a dog. Yeah? It's got like actual sleeves too though, because it's like how JoJo has hair, but then also the hair is the hat. It's a torn off sleeve, but also it's a sleeve. Now, their names were fun sounding to begin with, and trust me, unless you've pieced it together already, this extra knowledge will feel good. Their names are all sort of old-fashioned but still occasionally used ways of saying things are pretty good. Everything is okidoki.
Okidogie.
Dog. Everything is hunky-dory. Monkidori. Things are going good.
I'm feeling that sweet serendipity. And also I'm a pheasant. Fezandipiti.
That's all known and easy though, ain't it? But think again back to their linking factor. No, not Momotaro or the literal chain links, but the real historical timing and theming. Ijanaika literally translates to isn't it good? Ijanaika. Isn't it good? I'm feeling serendipitous. Ijanaika, okidokie. Ijanaika, we're all doing hunky-dory. Ijanaika, yoy, yoy, yoy. Ijanaika, oi, oi, oi. I'm out of shape. Yoy. And since we're talking etymology, Pecharunt is simply small, a runt, and it resembles a pecha berry, the Pokemon world's equivalent of a peach. And Ogerpon's name already gives away its whole twist already. It's an Oni, also known as a Japanese ogre, and Pon is a Japanese honorific that is sort of cutesy baby speak for someone super adorable and endearing, especially if they're a friend. Ogerpon, the friendly ogre, a 180 of the ogres from the Momotaro story who are all violent bandits and evil. Visually, Ogerpon is a little citrus tree, hence the grass typing, and I love that you can tell that its tree's trunk, its legs, split down the middle, and it even formed two little toes like Geta. Most likely, Ogerpon is a yuzu tree, Japanese oranges. Notice Ogerpon's orange and yellow spots, and the flower even resembles citrus flowers, and the shiny colors are just like it's got an unripe face now. Plus, Oni yuzu is a related variety of the fruit. Plus, oranges are already an important part of Pokemon Scarlet. You attend Naranja Academy, which is Spanish for orange citrus fruit. Where does that leave Pokemon Violet, though? Well, it leaves Ogerpon's signature move, Ivy Cudgel, where it uses its vines and ivy to make an Oni club and bash. And even many of its regular attacks has it launch vines and ivy out to whack and stab. Issue is, citrus trees don't have vines or ivy. Grapes do, though, and those vines look much more like grapevines than your usual Pokemon vines. And in Pokemon Violet, you attend Uva Academy, which is Spanish for grape. Love it. And now, and now, for the namesake of the DLC in the first place, the Teal mask. Ogerpon changes its type and cloak colors based on which mask it's holding, and those masks have a lot of history behind them too. They are all various Japanese Noh theater masks, and take a guess when Noh theater reached its peak popularity. Oh, no, sorry, you were wrong. It was just before the Meiji Restoration, same as all this other stuff. Well, you actually thought I'd try to pull a fast one on you there? Pfft, no. Like Kabuki Theater, Noh Theater had its main characters with exaggerated facial features for the audience to see, but Noh took it a step further to an even greater extreme, because they all used masks rather than just face paint. Many of these masks became Japanese icons and are sold as novelties at summer festivals to this day, hence all the masks at the Japanese Summer Festival in Kitakami. And like how we in the West have our classic comedy and tragedy masks, in Japan they have their own set, which includes the Okinamen, Onamen, Onimen, and Butsumen masks. Joy, sorrow, anger, and fulfillment masks, and they are in line with the Teal, Wellspring, Hearthflame, and Cornerstone masks, respectively. They have the same facial expressions, they're just made more monster Pokemon-y and more reflective of their types. And they're also reflective of Confucianism and its idea of the four ranges of human emotion: joy, anger, sorrow, and fulfilling happiness, which is different from joy. It's complicated, not gonna get into that. And to just layer more deep lore stuff on top of this, they could also resemble the four Oni said to have been summoned by a treasonous duo of brothers, which could relate to the duo of Ogerpon and its master who makes the masks. These four Oni were summoned around Mount Iwate, which is in the same prefecture as the real-world Kitakami. And just to link it up even more, that legend, known as Fujiwara Chikita's Four Demons, utilizes four different types of Oni too. The Water Oni disguises itself as a woman to do sneaky things. And it's the water-type Wellspring mask that has the most feminine-lookingness already. But it being based on the Onamen mask, that is to be expected. It means the woman mask, representing sadness. The Fire Oni is particularly warrior-like, so aggressive, angry, lining up nicely with the fire-type Hearthflame mask of Maditude. Wind Oni doesn't really fit, but there are versions of the story from different regions of Japan that will swap the Wind Oni with an Earth Oni, lining up well with the rock-type Cornerstone mask. And the fourth is the Hidden Oni, which leaves the Teal mask itself, the main mask, the grass-type one that hides itself amongst Ogerpon, being that it doesn't change its type at all, rather it just boosts it. And it's the one that Ogerpon hides its own face behind all the time during the story of the game, because Ogerpon is
quite shy after all.
And then when Ogerpon terastalizes, a huge crystalline copy of the mask appears, made out of terastal energy. A very neat effect, and also reflective of another major aspect of another Japanese summer festival, Aomori Nebuta Matsuri, which happens just next door to the Iwate Prefecture, the real-world Kitakami. This summer festival is famous for its huge light-up floats depicting upper halves and faces of people in battle, with exaggerated facial expressions not unlike the theater masks. They also tend to feature glowing, exaggerated superpower elemental type stuff like crashing waves and roaring fires or billowing winds and Oni helmets. And I can absolutely see Ogerpon fitting in alongside all of these floats, especially since another tradition from here and Kitakami is the Devil's Sword Dance, where children dress up and wear Oni face masks during the event. And the varieties of colorful outfits that they wear resemble the many colors that Ogerpon's own outfit changes to based on which mask it's wearing. Really, Ogerpon is the Japanese summer festival Pokemon, taking various summer festival traditions from all over Japan, though with a focus on the Northeast, and applying it to a reverse Momotaro ogre, Japan's most famous folktale, especially among kids. As for that flipping of the script again, rather than Oni coming and robbing the villagers ask the Loyal Three and Pecharunt to rob Ogerpon, which is why it loses 3 of its 4 masks. Ogerpon was peaceful and kind and just had a face that spooked some of the villagers. And you know what they say about judging someone based on their appearance?
That's no good.
Especially when it's something someone can't control, like Ogerpon's face, which honestly is really cute. It's a big fruit! Also consider that she is a 100% female Pokemon, and female Oni aren't unheard of in Japanese folklore, but are definitely extremely rare. So this design choice was made deliberately. It could have been to further iterate just how much the script was flipped. Ogerpon is just an innocent little girl trying to enjoy a festival. Really, she's just as kind and sweethearted as can be. Look at her bounce around all playfully while she's waiting. So cute. And plus, that would also explain the bright star eyes and the colored eyeliner and lashes and the extra citrus and flowers on the bush body being all asymmetrical like that. Something like 90% of Pokemon are symmetrical. If it's not, it's noteworthy. And to me, these seem to be nods to Decora fashion or Harajuku girls, which themselves are basically the Gen Z version of the millennials Gyaru and Ganguro girls, but taken to a whole new extreme. Ganguro is especially noteworthy though because of the artificially dark and tanned faces and heavy makeup, not unlike Ogerpon's very orange face. And the sparkle eyes go right along with Gyaru, which frequently uses stylized contact lenses. But the one thing that links all of these styles up is the overabundance of accessories, especially things like pins and clips all over. Really just over the top with them in a lot of cases. Hence, Decora possibly sounding familiar to you. Not that long ago we did a video about Revavroom, and when it comes to its Starmobile forms, those are heavily inspired by Decatora. The same ideas as Decora, but applied to a truck instead of a person. Life is silly, and I love it. Why not go check out that video now? It turns out a car engine Pokemon isn't too far off from another yokai, and makes perfect sense in Spain too. Thanks for watching. We recently implemented YouTube memberships below if you're interested in showing us extra support, and until next time, never stop using your noggin.